The day after Julian's engagement, his assistant handed me a plane ticket. "You should leave. Don't ever show your face in North City again. Otherwise," he added, "Mr. Julian has plenty of ways to ruin you." All these years with him, I had been envied by all, living a life of glamour and infinite luxury. In the end, my departure was so pathetic it was laughable. I said, "All right," but that night, the flight plummeted from an altitude of over 10,000 meters. I never thought I would die. In my version of the future, I would take Julian's 30 million, move abroad, and leave all the wretched people and things far behind. The rest of my life would be filled with countless good days. However, in the instant the plane fell, everything vanished. I was filled with such hate. The plane ticket Julian had someone book for me wasn't to send me off to a better life. It was to send me to my death. I suddenly remembered the last time I saw Julian. We hadn't spoken for over 2 months by then. He had been busy arranging the divorce for Isabella, settling her and her ex-husband's daughter. Busy for so long that he finally remembered he actually had another girlfriend, so he carved out an hour to come to my place. Though it wasn't really my place, the most luxurious district in North City, where every inch was worth gold. Without Julian, I could never have set foot in a place like this. Not long ago, we had been lying in bed together, his arm around my waist. I had been mischievous, scratching light marks down his back, but strangely, after just a short time apart, the two of us had become distant strangers. We sat at opposite ends of the table, far apart. He said, "What do you want?" It was a blunt question. I didn't hold back. For 3 years of my youth, I asked him for 30 million. Of course, I admit I once loved him, but that love had vanished completely the moment I found out I was just a stand-in. He nodded, said, "Fine," his expression cold, "but you can't stay in North City. She doesn't like being in the same city as you." What could I do? Of course, I could only bow my head, even if I disagreed with Julian's temper. He had 100 ways to drive me out. I would only end up in a more wretched state. He named a place. "I have property over there. Take your pick. Whichever one you like, I'll give it to you." So generous. I smiled. "All right." He gave a slight nod, then asked, "We won't see each other again. Can you do that?" My existence was indeed a thorn in the side of this engaged couple. "Of course," I replied. I was an orphan who had struggled to finish university 3 years ago. Hearing there were many opportunities to make money in North City, I came. I worked as a model for a few days, which I quite enjoyed, but it wasn't long before I met Julian. He pursued me extravagantly for half a month, and we got together. He didn't like me being in the public eye, so I shrank my world until it contained only him. It shrank so much that in all the years we were together, everyone I knew was his friend, not mine. I had no ties here. I was eager to fly far away and never return, and never see him again, but fate had other plans. Even after dying, I saw Julian again. He couldn't see me, though, because I was just a soul. I had always been obsessed with my appearance. Before boarding the plane, I'd had my hair styled and put on some light makeup. I hadn't worn light makeup in years, because Julian didn't like it. I was so naive back then. Everything I did was to cater to his tastes. Only later did I learn that his supposed dislike was just because I only truly resembled Isabella when I wore heavy makeup, with elongated eyeliner that made my eyes sparkle. It was common knowledge that the actress Isabella was famous for her wavy hair, bright eyes, and red lips. And now, perhaps as a mercy from heaven, I still looked as I did before I died. No wounds at all. Standing in Julian's office, I studied myself in the mirror for a good while before sighing in relief. I looked around. We'd done it here. And over there. Truly, a past not worth recalling. Finally, I let my gaze fall on Julian. He was 27 this year, young, with both wealth and power in his hands. The biggest stumble of his life was watching the woman he loved marry someone else. And now, the spilled water had been gathered, the broken mirror made whole. It was, in its own way, a joyous occasion. So, even his assistant, Mark, had a natural smile on his face when he entered. "Sir, the nursery is all set up, and the clothes and jewelry Miss Isabella picked out yesterday have all been collected." Julian gave a soft, He put down the contract in his hand, rubbed his brow, and then picked up his phone to look at it. He looked at it for a long time. I was a little curious and was about to lean in to see what he was looking at when he turned the screen off. Then I heard him speak. "How is she now?" Mark, the assistant, paused for a moment, then quickly replied, "Miss Isabella is on set right now, not far from here. Would you like to go see her later?" I had seen the TV series Isabella starred in. She played the princess of a fallen kingdom, beautiful, intelligent, daring in love and hate. In the show, she used her wits to win people's hearts and strategize. Ultimately, she succeeded in restoring her kingdom. If I were just an ordinary viewer, I would have fallen in love with her too. Unfortunately, I wasn't. The first time I met her was utterly humiliating. She asked me, "Do you know you look a lot like me?" I nodded, saying, "I know, she's a big star. A lot of people said I looked like her." I always took it as a compliment. She gave a cryptic smile. "You've been with him for nearly 3 years, haven't you?" I said yes. She raised an eyebrow lightly. "Let me put it this way. 3 years ago, he was in love with me." How ridiculous. I had been with him for 3 years, and not a single person had told me this. I had been a fool, a stand-in, for so long. Of course, I only found out later that the shows she starred in were all carefully selected by Julian before they were passed on to her. He couldn't bear to see her suffer any setbacks. So, under his protection, Isabella's acting career was smooth sailing. And me, I had accomplished nothing. For all these years, I seemed glamorous, but in the eyes of others, I was only ever that woman by Mr. Julian sighed. After Mark finished speaking, Julian remained silent for a long time. He tapped the desk with his pen. After a while, he finally spoke. "She should have landed by now, right?" The question was rather baffling, but Mark, being a man of experience, quickly understood. He glanced at his watch. "She should have." I understood too. Julian was asking about me. He had some conscience after all, but unfortunately, I hadn't made it to the other side of the ocean. I had died last night. Hearing this, Julian showed no reaction. He just turned on his phone again and glanced at it. This time, I was standing right next to him and saw it clearly. The screen showed our chat history. I saw that half an hour ago. He had sent me a message. "If you have any trouble in the future, you can contact Mark." In the past, I would never have let more than half an hour pass without replying to him. After hearing Mark's reply, Julian let out a cold laugh. He leaned back in his chair. "Good. Has she contacted you?" Mark shook his head. "No. After I gave her the ticket that day, we haven't seen each other." Julian was silent, his face expressionless, but in that instant, the air seemed to freeze. Seeing this, Mark hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Sir, should I give Miss Chloe a call?" Julian lifted his eyes, his gaze faint. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. After a while, he spoke. "No need. From now on, you don't need to tell me anything about her." After saying that, he glanced at our chat window again. The other side was silent. Still no reply. His finger hovered over the screen for a moment before he finally deleted all my contact information. Seeing this, I finally understood. He wasn't concerned about me at all. Those 2 questions were just a final courtesy before cutting ties completely. I was so angry. Why did I have to die? I had planned to block him the moment I landed and settled into the luxury villa he gave me. But now, he had done it first. I felt so deflated. Thinking this, I lifted my leg and kicked Julian's thigh. Back when our relationship was good, Julian was kind to me, not putting on airs. I, on the other hand, was the type to push my luck and throw little tantrums. When he made me unhappy, I would kick him just like that. So the motion was fluid and natural. But the difference was, back then, if I kicked too hard, it would hurt a little. Now, there was no feeling at all. I couldn't touch him. Great. Now I was even more pissed. After the assistant left, Julian worked for a long time. During this period, I tried to leave the office, but before I could even touch the doorknob, I was back by Julian's side. After 2 attempts, I understood that I couldn't get too far from Julian, probably because he was indirectly responsible for my death. It was a shame I didn't turn into a vengeful spirit. Otherwise, I could have come for his life. Just then, a voice suddenly appeared in my mind. "Finally found you." I was startled. "Who are you?" "I'm from the Department of Afterlife Affairs. We had a bit of a malfunction in our department. All of you who died in that plane crash will have to linger around the person you were closest to in life for a while." I quickly replied. "Then hurry up and take me away." "Oh, and I had a lot of money I didn't get to spend in this life. Can it be transferred to the next one?" God knows. I so desperately wanted to be a real rich woman. This afterlife official sounded a bit troubled. "I'm not too sure about that, but since you had a tragic death in this life, you can have a prettier death in the next." "Fine then, just take me away now. I'm in a hurry to be reincarnated." "Not yet. We have to wait until your funeral is over." "Why?" "During this time, your soul has formed a bond with the mortal world. Once the funeral is over, that bond will be severed. But from what I know, others have already started theirs. You're a bit pitiful. You know, it seems like no one cares that you're dead. That was a low blow. After relaying this, the voice disappeared from my mind. I sighed, running through everyone I knew in my head, and finally concluded, I was probably going to be a lonely ghost forever. After a long time, Julian was finally ready to leave. 2 minutes ago, Isabella had called, asking him to pick her up. I followed him downstairs and got in the car. I didn't look at Julian. I was looking at the scenery outside, skyscrapers, bustling traffic, a prosperity that felt like a dream. It wasn't without regret. My best years were wasted on a failed romance, leading to this end. I was so unwilling to accept it. That $30 million breakup fee. I hadn't even spent a penny of it. Honestly, it was too much. I felt tears welling up. When we arrived, Julian got out of the car. Soon after, Isabella came out and threw herself into his arms. Julian's body stiffened for a moment. Then he gave a light laugh. How was it? Tired? Isabella nodded, then started telling him about her day. Her voice was beautiful. Even the most boring story became vivid when told by her. They held hands, fingers intertwined. They wore matching engagement rings. Isabella had been in countless popular on-screen pairings throughout her career, but at this moment, looking at her and Julian, I had to admit they were a perfect match. Just then, someone came out from inside, talking as they walked. Did you see the news? A flight crashed last night. Over 100 people. No survivors. I saw it. I was supposed to go abroad for a vacation. Even booked a ticket on that exact flight. Luckily, I got this role at the last minute and didn't go. I'm so blessed. My spirits lifted instantly. Julian was actually a generous person. If he knew I was dead, he might just hold a funeral for me. Sure enough, upon hearing those words, Julian's movement to get into the car froze. He slowly turned, letting go of Isabella's hand, and walked over. He looked at the two people, his expression calm. He asked, "Last night?" The two nodded. Yes. Julian was about to ask more, but Isabella suddenly got out of the car, walked to his side, and said with a pout, "You never care about this kind of news, do you? I'm hungry. Let's go eat first." A moment ago, Isabella was far away and wearing sunglasses, so the two hadn't recognized her. Now that she spoke, they paused, their faces lighting up with surprise. "Miss Isabella, is this your fiancé?" Isabella and her ex-husband had a secret marriage. Her relationship with Julian, however, was a grand affair. The news of their engagement was all over the internet, with everyone calling them a match made in heaven. The hateful part was that I was exposed because of it. Netizens didn't care about right or wrong. Isabella and Julian knew each other first. Plenty of their university friends could prove it, so I became the homewrecker everyone condemned. The evil woman who used a similar face to interfere in someone else's relationship. During that time, I didn't even dare to look at my phone. Isabella smiled faintly and admitted it openly. "Yes, wow, he's so handsome. You two are so perfect together. When's the wedding?" "Miss Isabella, our set is right next to yours. We've been fans for so long but never had a chance to meet you. Could we get your autograph?" Isabella readily agreed. Julian, having been interrupted, lost the urge to ask further questions. My hope was instantly extinguished, but I wasn't surprised. I had known for a long time that in Julian's heart, everything had to come second to Isabella. Her smiles, her tears, her divorce drama, even her being hungry. He would devote 120% of his attention to her. Sure enough, while Isabella was signing autographs, I saw him make a call, telling his assistant to cancel the original restaurant reservation and book one closer to here. I went with them to dinner, then back to the house. Throughout the entire process, Julian was incredibly patient. If I still loved him, I would probably be heartbroken, wanting to cry my ghostly eyes out. But I didn't love him anymore. I just felt numb. There were even a few moments when I wondered, I've been a good person my whole life, never done anything wrong. Why is it that when I finally die, nobody cares? Entering the house, I saw that the villa had been completely transformed. It was entirely different from when Julian and I were still together. Mrs. Davis, the housekeeper, came down from upstairs, holding the hand of a little girl who looked to be only 3 or 4. She wore a fluffy dress, her hair naturally curly, and her eyes were large and beautiful. A diamond hairpin was clipped in her hair. Isabella waved. "Sophie, come here." She had her ex-husband's last name, Sophie. When Sophie ran over, threw herself into Isabella's arms, then grabbed Julian's hand. "Daddy Julian." Julian crouched down, stroking her hair, and asked patiently, "Were you a good girl today?" Such a harmonious family of 3. Who would have thought that the formidable CEO of the business world, Julian, would stoop so low for love as to raise another man's child. Sophie nodded vigorously. Yes. Just then, the doorbell rang, a bit shrill, interrupting the moment. Mrs. Davis went to open the door and returned a moment later with a package. She looked at Isabella, hesitating, before finally speaking. This seems to be from Miss Chloe. For a moment, I was dazed. A memory, deliberately forgotten after death, surfaced in my mind. That's right. Before I left, I had mailed a box to Julian. Inside were two things. The appearance of this box silenced the villa in an instant, until Sophie started crying in Julian's arms, pointing at the box in Mrs. Davis's hands. Throw it away. It's from the bad auntie. Boo-hoo. Her tantrum instantly threw Isabella into a fluster. She lowered her head and cooed at her daughter. All right, whatever you say. Mommy will throw it away right now. With that, she shot Mrs. Davis a look. Mrs. Davis understood, her expression a little troubled. She glanced at Julian. Sir. The man lowered his eyes, staring at the object in Mrs. Davis's hand for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Throw it out. Mrs. Davis sighed, turned, and left the house. When she returned a moment later, her hands were empty. Isabella watched and said casually, Your little stand-in is quite the lingering ghost, isn't she? I gritted my teeth and swore under my breath. Damn it, I really am a lingering ghost. I am the bad auntie, the little stand-in. If they had the guts, they could hire someone to perform an exorcism, make me disappear from this world for good. Hearing her words, Julian's expression didn't change. He didn't refute her, he just said, Is that so? Isabella smiled, had Mrs. Davis take Sophie back to her room, then snuggled up to Julian, her tone a little wistful. Sophie is so cute, isn't she? If only she were really your daughter. I had met Isabella's ex-husband. He was a well-known entrepreneur, mature, steady, and charming. Isabella's family wasn't wealthy, and she had been fiercely ambitious since she was young, like a heroine in a romance novel. At the peak of her youth in her sophomore year of college, she met both Julian and her future husband. Julian was just a student back then, always low-key at school. Isabella was fond of him, but that fondness was nothing compared to her future prospects. Her ex-husband, in pursuit of her, invested in a drama for her. By the time Julian found out, they were already married. At the same time, Isabella learned of Julian's true family background. Naturally, she regretted it, but she was too proud. After that, she never contacted Julian again, until a few months ago, when she discovered her husband was cheating. Only then did she come back to Julian, begging for his help, and thus, my beautiful love story came to an end. Isabella looked up. You know, I hurt my body when I had Sophie. I might not be able to later on. I don't mind. Julian cut her off, his voice deep. Isabella let out a breath of relief, her eyes glancing toward the door. She said in a coquettish tone, That's what you say, but what if? I'm just saying, what if your little stand-in got pregnant with your child? Would you still have sent her away so decisively? Julian frowned. I don't deal in hypotheticals. Oh, come on, just tell me. I want to hear what you think. What could he think? He would obviously make me get an abortion. Even though when we were together, he had actually mentioned marriage, designed matching couples rings with me, and discussed what we would do if we had a child in the future. But those were all just what ifs. The reality was, the moment Isabella looked back, he immediately distanced himself from me without so much as a breakup. Later, he stood by coldly and watched everything I went through. Then he paid me off with money. But now, Julian fell silent for a moment, then simply pushed Isabella away. His voice was cold, as if tinged with exhaustion. Don't bring her up again, Isabella said. But you were together for so long. Haven't you thought of her at all these past 2 days? Julian pursed his lips and shot Isabella a cold look. She's already gone. Aren't you satisfied yet? Originally, Julian had planned to send me away before their engagement, but Isabella wasn't happy about it. On our engagement day, let's invite her over to watch. The poor girl was with you for a while. She should at least witness the day, don't you think? Because of those words, my departure was postponed by half a month. At their engagement party, I sat in the audience and witnessed the entire thing. As luck would have it, Sophie was sitting right next to me. She looked at me, called me big sister, sweetly, and asked me to get her a piece of food. But the moment I raised my hand, she fell off her chair and was cut by a shattered glass. She started crying. Big sister, why did you push me? Everyone looked at me with contempt. They thought, this woman is truly vicious, failing to climb the social ladder. she resorts to harming a child. Before I could even react, Julian slapped me across the face. After the slap, I looked up and saw Isabella looking at me with triumph. She said, "I knew I shouldn't have let you come." And now, as a ghost listening to this conversation, I finally understood that whether I was innocent or not was completely irrelevant to Julian. Everything he did was just to make Isabella happy. Isabella pursed her lips, then suddenly reached out to unbutton Julian's shirt, leaning in to kiss him. Julian didn't refuse, but he didn't embrace her either. Just then, his phone rang. Isabella, annoyed, snatched the phone and put it on speaker. I was squatting in a corner and heard the person on the other end say, "Hello, may I ask if you know a Miss Chloe Summers?" Julian's eyes flickered, and he was about to speak, but Isabella had already said, "Don't know her." With that, she blocked the number and turned off the phone. "I don't care. I finally have a day off today. No matter what, you have to spend it with me first." They went upstairs. Fortunately, the distance wasn't too great. I could move freely downstairs. I didn't have to follow them up. And so, I stayed by Julian's side for several more days. On the first day, they went to a movie, an older film. It was Isabella's choice. Julian paid little attention. His head bowed as he messaged Mark. After Mark reported on his work, the typing indicator appeared on the screen for a long time, but no message came through. Julian frowned and typed, "Are you asking for time off?" Mark quickly sent a message back. "No, sir. Did you see the top news? Miss Isabella has a new movie coming out soon." "Is that so? Remind me when it's released." I clicked my tongue. This Mark really knew how to talk. The cinema was crowded. I had just been peeking over someone's shoulder, watching a few short videos and a couple of mini-drama episodes. I also saw the top news. A day later, the plane crash was still a top story, refusing to go down. All Julian had to do was click on it to see. What Mark likely wanted to ask was about that. But Julian had previously instructed him not to tell him any more news about me. So, Mark had to ask in such a roundabout way. After replying, Julian looked up and stared blankly for a long time. He had just realized that this movie was my absolute favorite. I had pestered him to watch it several times. As we watched, we would end up making love on the sofa, young and passionate, day and night. After a while, Julian suddenly stood up. Isabella, wearing sunglasses and a hat, whispered, "What's wrong?" "I'm stepping out." He left the cinema, left the mall, and stood outside, smoking until the ground was littered with cigarette butts. The second day, Isabella went to the film set, and Sophie came down with a fever. Julian personally took her to the hospital. After finally coaxing Sophie to sleep, Julian stood in a corner, gazing out the window, lost in thought. A nurse walked by, not seeing him, and chatted with another. "That little girl with the fever. She was here a few days ago, remember?" "I remember. It was a huge fuss. The hospital director himself came to greet them, but I remember it was just a scratch." "Who knows? Kids are like that. They cry and it's a big deal. But I remember a young woman came with them. At the very back. I heard she was the one who deliberately hurt the child." "I know the one. Very pretty," she was muttering. "What a pain and something about a Rolls Royce." Then she started crying. I even gave her a tissue. She was very polite. Said, "Thank you" to me. Didn't seem like a bad person. Yes, that person was me. I had agreed to postpone my departure and attend the engagement party. The condition was a Rolls Royce, 2 of them. I was terrified of being poor. In the 2 months Julian deliberately distanced himself from me, I had tasted my share of hardship. After that slap, I had wanted to explode, but the thought of the luxury cars made me hold it in. Besides, I was truly helpless against them. And now, Julian, standing nearby, actually let out a small laugh upon hearing this, but in the next moment, his smile vanished, because the other nurse continued, "Now that I think about it, I'd seen her before that. I was delivering something across the hall and ran into her coming for a prenatal check. Up." It's hard for me to describe Julian's expression at that moment. His lips were slightly parted, his back slumped a little, his hand at his side clenched into a loose fist, his expression one of bewilderment. Just then, Sophie's voice came from inside the room. She said, "Daddy Julian." Julian went inside. He stood by the bed, looking at the little girl, feverish and dazed, and suddenly spoke. "That day, did the pretty big sister really push you on purpose?" Sophie was just a child, and she was feeling awful. She stammered for a long time, and finally, unable to keep up the lie, her lip quivered. "I fell on my own." That night, Julian stood outside the hospital room, staring at the maternity ward across the way for the entire night. I watched his back and remembered too. When I died, I was pregnant. The reason I agreed to leave so readily, apart from being swayed by the money, was that I wanted to have this baby. If Julian had known, he would never have agreed. It wasn't really because I loved him. It was just that his genes were excellent. My thinking was clear. With the money he gave me, raising a child on my own would be a wonderful life. As dawn broke, he called the hospital director. By the time he hung up, he knew I had left pregnant. He put his phone away, leaned his forehead against the wall, and let out a short, sharp laugh. Chloe, you're really something. 2 minutes later, I saw him expertly dial a number. It was mine, but for some reason, he hesitated to make the call. After a long moment, he opened his messaging app, found my number, and sent a friend request. I didn't understand what he was doing. Was he trying to force me to get an abortion? Sigh, he didn't need to. I was dead. 1 body, 2 lives, a clean end. That afternoon, Sophie was discharged, but Julian didn't stay home with her, nor did he go to the office. Instead, he drove to the place I used to live. It was the apartment he had given me. After we broke up, he never mentioned it, so I took the initiative and sold it, for a high price, too. I was thrilled for days, but now, I was watching him enter the password and open the door. He walked inside. The furnishings hadn't changed much, exactly as they were when I left. So the buyer was him. Did he love this apartment that much? He gave it to me, only to buy it back from me. I really couldn't understand the minds of the rich. He walked around the apartment, then finally sat down. Someone called him. It was Mark's voice. Sir, I've just scheduled the pre-wedding photo shoot. It's for the day after tomorrow. If that's all right with you, I'll inform Miss Isabella. Julian was silent for a long time. He didn't speak. I was getting a little tired too and sat down on the other side of the sofa. In the next instant, Julian's gaze suddenly shifted. It landed right on me. I froze, almost thinking he could see me, but he slowly averted his eyes and finally spoke. Cancel it. What? But I checked the schedule. Both you and Miss Isabella are free the day after tomorrow. Then, how about next week? Over the past few days, I had learned that their wedding was set for 2 months from now. No, I mean, the photo shoot. We're not doing it. I couldn't figure Julian out anymore. After saying that, he spoke again. Book me a flight, for tonight. As he said this, Julian seemed to have finally figured something out. He leaned back, a hint of tenderness in his expression. He said, I'm going to find her. She left in such a hurry. We still have so much to say to each other. Do you think she'll blame me for being so cruel back then? I was stunned. Her Julian was talking about was me. Julian sighed, his hand gripping the phone tightly. He was always so cold and composed. It was rare for him to speak so candidly to someone. These few sentences were completely out of character. He had always believed that Isabella was the love of his life, but in these few days, he had suddenly realized it might have just been an obsession. He couldn't lose his Chloe, and their child, just for a youthful fantasy he couldn't have. However, Mark on the other end didn't agree immediately. He hesitated, then finally said, Sir, a few days ago, Miss Chloe passed away. That flight, it crashed. I instantly perked up. Julian's hand trembled slightly, his face turning pale. Everything he had deliberately ignored over the past few days came rushing back. The unanswered messages, the frequently mentioned news headlines, one thing after another. If he had paid just a little more attention, he wouldn't be finding out only now. Mark's voice came from the other side, extremely cautious. Sir, Julian's voice grew hoarse. When did you know? Shortly after it happened. He paused, then added, the day you told me not to tell you anything more about Miss Chloe. I nodded silently. That was true. I could vouch for Mark. Julian was the most unreasonable and decisive of men. When he made a decision, his subordinates could only obey. Or perhaps, in Mark's mind, I was insignificant to Julian. He wouldn't think of me again, let alone ask about my whereabouts. As an assistant, why would he go out of his way to offend the future Mrs. Julian? Julian's face darkened. Even from beside him, I could tell his current state was very unstable. The next moment, he stood up and viciously kicked the coffee table in front of him. My heart ached a little. I had picked that coffee table myself. It was quite expensive. Julian got up, as if suddenly remembering something. He took the number Isabella had blocked out of his blacklist and dialed it back. His fingertips trembled, and his other hand uncontrollably pulled a cigarette from the pack on the table and lit it. Chloe Summers. She's dead, isn't she? The person on the other end was silent for a moment, then finally spoke. Sir, please accept my condolences. After hanging up, Julian sat alone for a long time before driving home. The moment he walked in, he had only one sentence. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Isabella was wearing a face mask and watching a movie. Hearing this, she instinctively replied, "What are you talking about? Why are you back so late?" "Sophie was asking where you were all afternoon. You should go upstairs and check on her." Julian curled his lip and walked over to Isabella. His eyes were cold. I had never seen him like this, let alone Isabella. She stepped back, her voice rising. "What's wrong with you? I'm not like your little stand-in. I have a temper, you know." At her words, Julian, for some reason, started to laugh. He laughed until tears streamed down his face. "I remember. She had a big temper too. I slapped her that day, and I thought she would cause a scene at our engagement party, but she didn't. Only the favored can be fearless." By then, I already knew my place in his heart. How could I have dared? Isabella's face turned pale. "Chloe, you found out about her?" "Yes." "What? Don't tell me, now that she's dead, you've suddenly realized you were in love with her all along." Julian pursed his lips. "Yes, the wedding is off. I'm not marrying you." Isabella shot up. "No, you promised you would marry me, that you would treat Sophie as your own daughter and be good to us for the rest of our lives. You can't go back on your word." Julian lowered his eyes and said, word by word, "If you hadn't insisted she stay for our engagement party, she wouldn't have died." Isabella was stunned. Then she laughed. "You're blaming me. You're actually blaming me. If you weren't still hung up on her, would I have had to do that? You probably don't even know it yourself, do you? You call out her name in your sleep. When we go shopping, your eyes always land on the styles and sizes she likes. You had already fallen in love with her. The way I see it, you're the hypocrite. You're the one who killed her. And besides, when I said she should stay for the engagement party, you were visibly relieved. You wanted to see her one last time too, didn't you?" Julian listened to all this in silence, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I stood by, a little dazed. What was all this? It started to rain outside, with thunder rumbling. Inside, the two of them faced off. From upstairs came Sophie's crying, "Mommy, Daddy." Julian looked up, his eyes bloodshot, and pointed at the door, telling Isabella, get out now." Isabella and her daughter left that very night. Watching this drama unfold, honestly, I didn't feel any sense of satisfaction. I just found it absurd. At this point, I almost wished that the person in Julian's heart had always been Isabella. Otherwise, it made my death seem utterly ridiculous. A love that comes too late is not worth having. After the villa fell completely silent, Julian leaned back on the sofa, his gaze empty. After a long while, I heard a suppressed sob. Come to think of it, I had never seen him cry before. After a long time, I was about to doze off, but Julian suddenly stood up and ran outside as if he had gone mad. He started rummaging through the trash cans. The rain poured down on him, and soon he was a complete mess. Fortunately, I was a ghost and couldn't feel any of it. He muttered, "Where is it? I was wrong. I shouldn't have thrown it away." Oh, so he was looking for the package I sent him. He searched for an entire night, but he found nothing. He sat by the door, utterly dejected. Luckily, this was a villa district with few people around to see him in this state. Mrs. Davis didn't sleep here, and when she arrived the next day, she was startled. "Sir, what are you?" A flicker of life returned to Julian's face. He said, "The thing she sent, you were the one who threw it away, but I can't find it." Mrs. Davis paused, her expression changing. After a moment, she said, "Actually, I didn't throw it away." Julian looked up, his eyes shining with a startling brightness. "Where is it?" Mrs. Davis walked towards her room, and Julian followed her, step by step. Mrs. Davis sighed. Miss Chloe was a good girl, not a bad bone in her body, going to such a faraway place all by herself. Who knows when she'll be back? Julian's steps faltered, his throat moved. "She's not coming back." Mrs. Davis didn't understand his meaning, thinking Julian was determined to keep me away forever. She shook her head. "What a pity. Before, she used to ask me what you liked to eat, wanted to cook for you. She also said she didn't really like such heavy makeup, but since you liked it, she liked it too. She even asked me if she looked a lot like Miss Isabella, just as pretty." The girl was all smiles. I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth, so I said she was even prettier than Miss Isabella. She was so happy when she heard that. Julian looked away, his hand at his side trembling uncontrollably. He was on the verge of tears again. The box finally made its way into Julian's hands. He treated it like a precious treasure. Taking it back to his room, he placed his hand on it, but his hands were grimy and dirty. He quickly used a tissue to wipe the box clean, not daring to touch it again. Instead, he went to take a shower and changed into clean clothes. This was probably the longest shower he had ever taken. Watching all this, I felt bored. When a person dies, it's like a lamp going out. Everything is empty. He opened it, and his expression slowly froze. Inside was an invitation to their engagement party. On the back, I had written a line of words. The wedding candy was awful. I didn't push anyone. Go to hell. Well, in the end, I was the one who died. I suppose this was karma for my harsh words. The other item was the pair of matching couples rings we had made together. His, whether intentionally or not, had been lost long ago. He had hardly ever worn it. I found it in the grass downstairs from my apartment building. Now, I had placed it with mine and returned them both to him. After all, he was the one who paid for them. It was only right to return them to their original owner. Julian looked at them for a long time before he finally took off the ring he shared with Isabella. He put on the one from the box. After that day, he fell into a deep depression. Not long after the news of his broken engagement with Isabella got out, she was exposed for being a diva and bullying newcomers. Her reputation plummeted, but this time, Julian didn't help her handle it. He even said, "Add more fuel to the fire. Men are truly terrifying." As the days went by, he still hadn't remembered to hold a funeral for me. The official from the afterlife department couldn't help but come and urge me. "How about I pull some strings and let you say a few words to him?" But that very night, Julian, who hadn't slept for days, got into a car accident while driving. On the day he was about to wake up, the sunlight was beautiful. I stood by the window and suddenly spoke. "Julian." His eyelashes trembled. He seemed to want to open his eyes, but couldn't. I said, "I have no family and no friends. For the sake of our past, hold a funeral for me. Make it a lively one. And let's not meet again in the next life." The hospital room was quiet for a long time after I spoke. After a while, I heard a very low voice. "All right,